Thank you, Mr. Norman. Yield to the gentleman from Colorado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the chairman and the ranking member for being here today, and appreciate the fulsome nature of the conversation. And the debate, don't want to belabor the point, I guess two fairly straightforward questions for you, Mr. Chairman. First is, I just want to make sure I understand this right. You testified to, it sounds like, the inability of your committee or of you personally to be able to connect with administration officials. So are you attesting today that you don't speak with Secretary Blinken or National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan or any of these folks on a periodic basis? I mean, I'm trying to understand. You're the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. I assume you have fairly regular interactions with them, or am I mistaken?
Well, we will have the Secretary testify, I believe, next week, and it will be an interesting time. But no, we have not received any briefings on this issue. We have requested those. We've received absolutely zero.
I just want to clarify.
And so everything, I mean, Mr. Meeks is talking about the 2,000-pound bombs. When the president says, if they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying any weapons, I don't know what he means other than what he says. And without the benefit of a brief, I don't know what weapons are being withheld. We assume the 2,000-pound bombs, but it could be a whole lot of other stuff.
And Mr. Chairman,
and all I know is what I see publicly in the news.
And I'm not asking about the substance here.
Yeah.
And these aren't trick questions.
Well,
I'm trying to figure out, I guess what I'm saying is, you don't talk with Secretary Blinken on the phone?
I do, but they are not talking on this one.
So he won't answer your calls, or what?
They are not talking to this committee on this issue, period.
So he won't answer your call? I guess I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to get again, this isn't it's not meant to be.
I have a call scheduled on Friday.
Last Friday?
This Friday.
You have a call scheduled this Friday with the Secretary about this subject?
Well, and about he'll be testifying next week.
Sure.
However, we've asked for repeated briefings from the administration on, hey, we're hearing these rumors and Axios News is reporting this, and CNN. What is going on?
Okay.
And we want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but without any information coming forward from the administration, all I have is the press and the president's words on CNN. That's the best I got.
Let me try this a different way. Ranking Member Meeks, I assume you're having conversations with folks at the White House, or officials, Secretary Blinken, relevant undersecretaries. Am I mistaken, or is that?
No, that's correct.
Okay. Part of why I'm asking this question, it just seems to me like it would be fairly straightforward to ultimately be able to engage the administration on the questions that you have.
I agree.
And sounds like you've got a call scheduled with Secretary Blinken on Friday. So perhaps the next relevant question, or the next logical question for me anyways, is why not have this go through regular order? Why not follow the normal process, have a legislative hearing, have the administration come in and testify about their position, have them be cross-examined by the very capable members on your committee, both Republicans and Democrats, mark up the bill. I think you have a markup scheduled for this Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not on Foreign Affairs. On what day?
Thursday.
I think it's Thursday.
Yeah.
Mark up the bill, and then bring it to this committee. I mean, the Rules Committee. That's what I suppose is the part that's most perplexing to me.
Well, I think what's perplexing is that the administration will not respond to our request. We asked that Mr. McGurk on the National Security Council come to brief us, and we've gotten, it's great that the ranking member has this access that the chairman doesn't, but maybe that shows you the partisan nature of this administration, that they won't talk to
But it sounds like you have a call scheduled with the Secretary of State in 3
about
days.
his testimony next week.
Sure.
But we've asked for repeated information on this, and we've been stiff-armed
And so
by this
if
administration.
that's the case, Mr. Chairman,
It is.
and I hear you, then hold a legislative hearing.
Well,
and if
it's
the witnesses,
hard to go regular order when
me-
you can't
let
have
me-
a witness for a hearing.
let me complete my statement, and then I'll give you a chance to respond, Mr. Chairman. My point is, proceed with the legislative hearing. If the witnesses don't show, the witnesses don't show. Mark up the bill. Give your members an opportunity to amend the bill, to have a fulsome debate about a number of different constitutional questions that I think this bill poses, as was noted in some of the prior exchanges, and then bring it to this committee. But it's not clear to me why this didn't follow that process.
Because Israel's in a hot war. This is an emergency, and we can't wait till after the break. And so
Okay.
there's a lot of, and because they've gone against congressional intent.
So why not do a
And so-
legislative hearing last Friday? I mean, my understanding is the president made his announcement last
okay.
Wednesday.
With all due respect, who would testify?
What was that?
Who would testify?
My point is that you would open up the legislative hearing, you'd ask the administration to testify. If they choose not to testify, that would be an answer in and of itself, and you would then have an opportunity to hold a markup. And perhaps that would shape the view of various members in this body as to this
I
particular
would
piece of
say the ranking
legislation.
member and I work pretty well with the secretary, but I'll say on this one, it's been complete silence.
And I'm
And I
not,
don't know why.
I'm not discounting your,
That's the fact.
obviously, I'm not having conversations
Yeah.
with the Secretary of State. I'm simply saying the president's announcement, as I understand it, happened last Tuesday, last Wednesday. The House and House Republicans canceled votes last Thursday, sent everyone back home to their respective districts and their respective states. We didn't have votes yesterday. We weren't called back. We're here today. I don't know why, if it was such an urgent matter as you're describing it, steps couldn't have been taken again to give,
you know,
let
you
me
have
just finish,
7
and I'll give you a
days
chance
notice for Mark,
to give
there's
some
a-
semblance of process. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you're adhering to the 7-day notice for markup, but not following regular order at all with respect to consideration of this bill.
I don't see how you can follow regular order with an administration that won't talk to you.
I think, Chairman, I would simply say, because I have great respect for you, as you know, and respect your views on a number of, wide range of matters, but in particular matters of foreign policy. And I would just suggest to you, given the nature of what we're discussing here today, following regular order with respect to this particular bill would not have been an immense task. It's something that, let me just conclude, and I'll give you and the ranking member a chance to respond.
Yeah.
It's something that I think you and the ranking member, given the trust you have for one another and the partnership you've developed, could have easily gotten done, in my view, perhaps on the same timeline. And so I would just encourage you, because I suspect this isn't going to be the last time that the Rules Committee is called to consider an emergency measure that perhaps comes from your committee. We're called to do that on a number of committees with some regularity these days. But I would hope for the next time when it comes to your committee
Right.
that you would take a moment and perhaps find some ways to, you have a very diligent team, I suspect, on the committee, find some ways to make the necessary arrangements to go through regular order. I want to give the ranking member a chance to
But can
respond.
I say
to
I
that.
appreciate that?
Go ahead.
And that, this is considered an emergency wartime. Having said that, we will be marking up another bill pertaining to this issue with regular order that involves notification. I think the biggest problem here is when we're notified to approve weapon sales, and we do so, and then Congress appropriates monies with that intent, and then the administration, say, wants to change course, that Congress at least deserves to be notified by the administration as to why they're doing this policy. And we did not receive that from this administration. That's part of the problem here. I think this other bill will help address that, along with the joint resolution of disapproval.
And I understand your frustrations, and I would just simply say, again, irrespective of where folks land in terms of their views of the president's decision in this particular case, insofar as you believe that he made the wrong decision, and you are attempting to change it, to change the policy, you've made repeated references to the urgency of the situation. The president, the White House, has issued a veto threat against this bill. It will be vetoed if it passes the House and the Senate, and of course, it's not going to be considered in the Senate. So this isn't about changing the policy. This is about let me conclude. I'll give you an opportunity. But this is about, obviously, you and others of a like view articulating a message and conveying a message to the White House. I understand your reasoning for doing so, but I'm simply suggesting that insofar as you'd like to actually change the policy, and you believe that it is urgent, then working with the administration and working with the ranking member, I would think would be preferable. I need to give the ranking member...
The ranking member will tell you that we do normally work that way. In this case...
I wish it would have been in this
we were
case.
not given the... I do want to say this. We were not given the benefit of that from this administration. Having said that, yeah, a part of this exercise is to put pressure on the administration to do the right thing. It's interesting how today we just got notification of $1 billion weapons package. Don't you find that interesting?
I think you should
And
call.
don't you find that this exercise is actually working?
I find it more interesting that Secretary Blinken is about 20 miles from here and that the two of you can't get on the phone so that you can you can develop a plan.
I have a good
But in any event,
relationship. We
Ranking
won't
Member,
talk about this one.
Ranking Member Meeks.
Couple of things. Number one, and I'll say this publicly, so if, in fact, the administration is refusing to come to testify to request, let's do a joint letter. I'll sign off on it also, because I don't know of those scenarios where the witness come in to testify at a hearing. You know, I'd say on those issues we agree upon, let's do it, because I think it would be informative for Democrats and Republicans. And I would be all for it, you know, in the spirit of the bipartisanship of what we have in the committee, which I believe is one of the most bipartisan committees there is. And so I would be all for trying to make sure, this is a very important issue, that we make sure that happens in that regards. I think that's tremendously important. I think that we are dealing with the messaging bill. I mean, that's what this really is. You know it's not going anyplace. So the whole purpose is, as has been done almost in, not only in our committee, but almost every committee here, there's been messaging bills trying to attack Joe Biden. I mean, I keep hearing about, as one of the questions were asked, about the pull-out of Afghanistan. I didn't hear a single Republican say anything about Donald Trump when he had the Taliban at Camp David. Not one,
Well,
with Pompeo.
He didn't have them. But, I know he was thinking about it.
And, well, I've seen the Secretary of State, then Pompeo, with them. I mean, laughing. The agreement to pull out was not started by the Biden administration. So if there was weakness, the weakness should have been talked about during the Trump administration, when he was the one that initiated, we're pulling out, and set a deadline of when we pulled out, which was inherited by Joe Biden. But yet, when we want to talk about Afghanistan and try to talk about all of it, we can't get hearings on that. It's just on those last days of the pullout, which is just an attack or attempted attack on Joe Biden. There was a lot of other things that was purported that took place in Afghanistan that is also proven not to be true. That we allowed the bomber to get away, that somebody had him in the sights. After investigation that the administration agreed upon, that was proven not to be true. And we did, in my estimation, to some of the innocent families whose loved ones was killed, thinking that something else happened. So don't come now and say Joe Biden is weak when you're talking about diplomacy, because for me, that's strength. It's easy to say, in my opinion, let's go bomb them. I mean, that's how I grew up. That was easy. That's what bullies did. Let's just go fight them. Diplomacy is much harder, very difficult. And as Representative Scallon indicated, it's not simple. It's hard. It's frustrating, but it's worth it. And I want to finish, because I keep saying this is the way I think, I don't know whether it was Mr. Norman said this or not, let's just finish it. I want to finish it so that the Israelis can live in peace. I don't want to finish it where war continues on and Israeli can't, they still have to worry about rockets being fired over. They still got to worry about people saying that Israel should not exist and thereby folks focused on destroying Israel. I want to end it for real, where Israel has finally a Jewish state that is safe from Hamas and terrorists, and others in the region acknowledge their right to exist and want to normalize relationship with them. This is why I'm calling and talking to individuals, ambassadors now, finding out when their heads of states or their foreign ministers will be traveling, because they also want to change the scenario. This is a moment that is tremendously important, and to not consider them. Look, I heard, will Saudi Arabia trust us? If, in fact, you know, by the president saying, don't utilize 2,000-pound bombs? They're going right. They will trust us. They don't want us to use it. They think it will damage the relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia if this war continues to go in the way that they do. And the only way we're going to solve it is having, that's why all of us, I mean, most of us, I was a big, and still am a big supporter of the Abraham Accords, because it goes toward that solution. I don't want to do anything that jeopardizes it. And any Israeli I talked to, they were big supporters of the Abraham Accords because it finally meant some way of having peace for themselves. They're afraid that this will jeopardize it. Just talk to the Saudis, the Jordanians, the Egyptians. How we do this and how we end this matters. Let's get rid of it. And there's one thing that we all agree upon. One thing we all agree upon. Hamas has got to go. So no one is saying, forget Hamas, let Hamas stay. You know, we all agree. That terrorist organization who does not believe in Israel's right to exist, who will do this again if they are allowed to do it, has got to go.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, thanks, gentlemen. The gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Chairman